Welcome back to the channel, guys. Once again, it is that time of the year. Days are getting warmer. We're getting into the 20s and ice is completely off the lakes. We're officially into the spring season and it is my favorite time to target and fish for walleye. We still have 1 week to go until opening day in southern Saskatchewan, May 5th. So today I'm going to share with you my top 3 early spring walleye baits and tips on where to find them and how to work your lure to trigger those bites. So I'm not a pro by any means, but over the years I've figured out some patterns in my local Saskatchewan waters, especially fishing from shore. So hopefully these tips will help you guys shore fishermen to be more successful this spring walleye season. First, we have to talk location. So you can't just go to a lake on a random spot and expect the fish to be there. Although most of our lakes in my area are ice-free, the water is still pretty cold. So you want to find the warmest part of the lake, and that is shallow moving water. You know, shallow sand flats, inlets, outlets at a lake, channels connecting two lakes, or bay areas on a lake, also shallow water. Yeah, these are the typical areas you want to look for. All of the minnows, insects, and weeds start to show up first in these shallow water areas. That attracts a walleye to come feed after a cold winter. But most importantly, these walleye come here to spawn, to have babies. You're gonna find yourself catching 20-inch walleyes on average, or even bigger. Because this is a mature population, it is the best time to break your personal best record. Now there's a ton of resources to help you find these areas. You know, you can use just like a Google map satellite image. You can talk to your friends, you can join Facebook groups and forums, or you can watch YouTube videos like what you're doing right now. So number 1 bait on my list is the jig and paddle tail swim bait. So now there's different styles of jig head. You have round jig head, you have like those swim bait style jig head with or without eyeballs. I prefer a round lead jig head with a decent length hook shank, something like the VME MoonEye Jig. And do not use short shank jig heads like this one. This is meant for live rigging minnows and leeches. If you put plastic on there with a 3 or 4 inch, the fish will only get the tail, not the hook. So don't use these kind of jigs for plastic. And for plastic, I prefer a 3 inch or a 4 inch paddle tail plastic with a rib body. So I believe that rib body creates a lot of vibration when it swims through the water, and that attracts a walleye. Something like this. This is a Berkley power swimmer. It's got that Berkley power based scent that's even better for attracting fish. If I'm fishing a small creek or river with very slow to no current, I will go down to 1/8 ounce jig with a small plastic. For that slow and finesse presentation. You know, you can get away with that bait staying in the strike zone longer, not being pushed away by the current with a lighter presentation. And if I'm fishing a bit deeper water, or I want that extra casting distance, for example fishing at a beach, I will go up to 3/8 ounce jig head. So this is my go-to combo. Like I showed before, this is a 1/4 ounce VME MoonEye Jig with a 3.8 inch Berkley power swimmer. And because our southern Saskatchewan lakes don't have the clearest water, sometimes it's like muddy water, I prefer a brighter color. You can use like green, bright green, or chartreuse. I like a white. You can never go wrong with a white color. I believe it shows up better for the fish in the water. And how do you fish this bait, right? So you just cast it out, let it sink to the bottom. You don't have to hurry up. Let it sink to the bottom. You feel that slack line, right? And then you start retrieving. And again, you don't have to reel your bait too fast. You actually want it to stay close to the bottom, just swimming above the bottom to stay in that strike zone. Yeah, and then just keep doing it. Fan cast different angles until you get a bite. I'm very confident in this bait. Early spring, they don't care about live bait. They just want that movement in the water. They see it out of aggression, they just bite it. And you know, you can experiment with different styles of retrieve. You can give it hops, you know, pauses, You know, just drag it on the bottom. You know, try different styles of retrieve to find out what they like the best in that particular day. And because it's a swim bait, it makes for a great search bait, especially at a sandy bottom beach where you're facing the entire lake. You know, you can fan cast at all directions and just burn it in. If you don't get a bite, move on. It's very efficient bait. And another great thing about fishing a plastic is that it's a lot more durable than your minnows and leeches. You can catch multiple fish before you need to change your plastics. In fact, I found a company, Z-Man. They make these extra stretchy, extra durable plastic. You know, I'm stretching it. It's not tearing apart. It's not breaking in any way. And this is also a paddle tail style swim bait. Doesn't have the rib body, but it's still a paddle tail. You know, it can probably last you the entire season if you don't break off. So I've had consistent success fishing only artificial baits in the springtime, you know, without using any kind of minnows, leech, or worms. I believe in springtime, fish are aggressive in spawning mode, and they're looking for that movement. They bite it out of aggression. If you have a dead pickerel rig sitting there, sometimes they see it, but they're not interested. They don't even want to bite it unless it's something moving. So this spring, don't be afraid to use plastics to catch walleye, especially when the whole food chain hasn't started yet. They see something swimming like a fish, they will bite it. My number 2 favorite spring walleye bait is the Ned Rig. Something like that. I discovered it last spring, and it worked like magic. I caught big walleye, big pike, small walleye, you name it. They see it, they just chomp on it. So, you know, it's still a jig head and a plastic combination, but with a twist. Now, with a jig head, you have a flat jig head, and I have a floating worm, right? So when it's on the bottom, it sits upright, and the tail kind of just wiggle. So this is originally designed for bass fishing. So compared to a paddle tail swim bait, it's a more finesse and much slower technique and presentation. And I recommend using a fluorocarbon leader tied directly on the eyelet just for a better presentation, for it to, you know, stand up in the water on the bottom. When I throw a Ned Rig, I'm not using it to search for fish. I already know the fish is generally in this area at that bank. I'm about 90% sure that the fish are where I think they are, and with this finesse presentation, it will give me a easier bite. So yeah, it's usually in a close quarter combat situation where I know where the fish are, and a finesse and slower presentation. So how do I fish the Ned Rig? Same idea, you just cast it out, let it sit, let it drop. Yeah, first let it drop, let it sit on the bottom. Don't need to hurry up reeling it in. I let it sit on the bottom for 3 to 5 seconds, and then slowly hop it. So with your, you know, with your wrist, give it a flick, and then the Ned Rig will go like this. You know, it's like a little worm jumping on the bottom. I'm not sure what the fish think this is, but, and honestly, this is not even natural color, right? With a bright jig head like that, they just bite it. I don't understand, but I'm not a fish. All I know is they love it, and I throw it. So yeah, you just slowly bring it, hop it across the bottom, and then do it again. It works better when the bite is finicky. So, you know, this spring I'm gonna explore and expand on a different plastic, putting it on the Ned Rig jig head. Something like, you know, obviously this also floats. A Ned Minnow also floats up, and I have something like that. Got from AliExpress. Look at that. Looks just like a crayfish. It's also got that stretchy plastic body. They call it the indestructible or whatever plastic, right? And it looks just like a crayfish. Pretty lifelike too. I'll put that on a Ned Rig jig head. You know, that's a perfect size. And just hop it along the bottom just like a crayfish escaping from whatever is chasing it. Yeah, so that's the Ned Rig. I know a lot of you probably don't use this technique. It's not the most effective. It's not the most efficient at searching fish, but once you know where they are, you can hammer them on these little tiny finesse presentations. So number 3 on the list, we have the Rapala Shadow Rap or X Rap. So these are jerk baits. Well, I guess jerk baits in general. Not crankbait, but jerk bait. I like to use the suspending or slow sinking type jerk bait. When you fish it, you know it's got a slow wobble, but what makes the action excel is the jerking and pausing action, making the fish look like a injured, wounded bait fish, kind of swimming across the water. Yeah, it's also got little BB balls in there to give you that vibration. So I mainly use these kind of jerk baits on sandy bottom beaches, because in small creeks and rivers there could be stuff in the water that you can snag on. So, and these baits have treble hooks. I just cast it out and give it a few cranks, let it hit bottom, and then just jerk, pause, or jerk, pause. You can be creative on the action, and the fish usually bite it on the pause. So don't be afraid to give it a longer pause. They always bite it on the pause. Another bait I like to use is the shad wrap, but mainly for midsummer and trolling on the kayak or boat. It's also a great diving bait, like it dives down to the bottom quickly. But the thing with it, with the shadow wrap, is it rises too quickly, so kind of going away from the strike zone. But if you're in super shallow water, the shadow wrap is another great option, because springtime, the walleye are hugging the bottom. They're in the current, you know, on the gravels, spawning, doing their thing. So yeah, so that's gonna do it for the top 3 T10 Outdoors favorite baits for spring walleye. I don't know how much it's gonna help you. A lot of you probably already fishing these baits and having success, but for those of you who have not heard of these baits or used, give it a try this spring. You might be surprised how many fish you're gonna catch. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Opening day is in a week. For those of you following in the Saskatchewan southern region, you probably know where to find me, so I'll see you at the dam. Let's see if I can catch a 30-incher this year. So yeah, that's gonna do it. See you next time on T10 Outdoors. Peace.